My name is Amanda, and for as long as I can remember, my sister Sarah was the golden child. She was 3 years younger than me, but somehow she always came first in our parents' eyes. Don't get me wrong, they didn't neglect me entirely. They just preferred her. When I made the debate team, they nodded and smiled. When Sarah joined the cheerleading squad, they threw a party. When I needed new clothes, we went to the outlet mall. When Sarah wanted a new wardrobe, it was a weekend shopping spree at the fancy stores downtown. Dad wasn't much different. Every Saturday, he'd take Sarah to the park, buy her ice cream, and spend hours pushing her on the swings. I'd tag along sometimes, walking a few steps behind them, watching their matching dark hair bounce as they laughed at inside jokes I wasn't part of. Sarah wasn't cruel about it, which almost made it worse. She never rubbed it in my face or tried to make me feel bad. She was just there, soaking up all the attention like a pretty little sponge, while I learned to thrive in the shadows. Our relationship was comfortable. Not close, exactly, but not hostile either. We existed in a careful balance, like two planets orbiting the same sun, never colliding but never quite connecting either. I threw myself into my studies, finding validation in academic achievement that I couldn't get at home. While Sarah was content to coast by on her charm and our parents' indulgence, I worked my ass off. Every A+, every academic award, every teacher's praise, became a brick in the wall I built around my heart. Amanda's so mature for her age, teachers would tell my parents at conferences. Such a dedicated student. My parents would smile politely, then rush home to help Sarah with her homework or console her over some minor social drama. It was just the way things were, and I convinced myself I was okay with it. Looking back now, I should have seen the signs. The way Sarah's smile would tighten when I achieved something she couldn't. The flash of resentment in her eyes when our parents actually paid attention to me. The subtle way she'd redirect conversations to herself whenever I was in the spotlight. But I was too busy trying to prove myself, too focused on being the perfect daughter even if I could never be the favorite one. I thought if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, maybe one day they'd see me, really see me, for who I was. College was my escape. Finally, a place where hard work actually meant something, where being the responsible one was an asset rather than a consolation prize. I got into state university with a partial scholarship. All those straight A's finally paid off. I threw myself into campus life with the same intensity I'd applied to high school. While other freshmen were struggling to adjust, I was thriving. I joined the business club, made the dean's list, and landed an internship at Preston & Associates, one of the top financial firms in the city. "You're a natural," my supervisor told me during my internship evaluation. "We'd love to have you join us full-time after graduation." I practically floated home that day. For once, everything was falling into place according to my plans, not anyone else's expectations. Meanwhile, Sarah started college 3 years after me. Mom and Dad paid her full tuition, set her up in a fancy apartment near campus, and gave her a monthly allowance that was more than I made at my part-time job. "Your sister needs to focus on the college experience," Dad explained when I pointed out the disparity. "You're different, you actually enjoy studying." He wasn't wrong. While I was building my future, Sarah was building her social media following. Her Instagram was full of party photos and spring break adventures. Every time I visited home, she had a new story about some crazy night out. "You should come party with us sometime," she'd say, knowing full well I was too busy with my internship and studies to join her. After graduation, Preston & Associates made good on their offer. I started as a junior analyst and rented a small but decent apartment downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine, earned with my own hard work. That's where I met James. He was the financial director, tall, clean-cut, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that made my heart skip. We started running into each other in the break room, then at company happy hours, and finally, he asked me to dinner. When he proposed 6 months later, I was over the moon. He did it properly, down on one knee at our favorite restaurant, with a ring that must have cost him at least 3 months' salary. I couldn't wait to tell my family. We arranged a dinner at my parents' house, and Sarah, who'd recently graduated and moved back home, would be there too. She'd been working some entry-level marketing job, though from her social media, it seemed like she spent more time at happy hours than at her desk. The dinner started well enough. Mom made her famous pot roast, Dad opened his best wine, and James charmed them all with stories about his work and plans for the future. "Amanda really lucked out with you," Mom gushed, touching James's arm. "Such a responsible young man. They make such a perfect couple," Dad agreed, beaming at us. "When's the wedding?" For once, all the attention was on me, and it felt amazing. James squeezed my hand under the table as my parents peppered us with questions about wedding venues and dates. But across the table, Sarah sat picking at her food, her face growing darker with each passing minute. I caught her staring at my engagement ring, her lips pressed into a thin line. Every time James spoke, she would roll her eyes slightly or shift uncomfortably in her chair. James and I decided not to rush into the wedding. We started looking at venues on weekends, discussing color schemes over dinner, and dreaming about our future together. I'd never been happier. That all changed on a Tuesday evening. I remember it was Tuesday because I'd just finished my weekly video call with my wedding planner. I was still in my work clothes when James knocked on my door. Something was off. He usually texted before coming over, and his face was like a thundercloud. "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the apartment. His voice was cold, nothing like the warm, gentle tone I was used to. "What's wrong?" I asked, my stomach already knotting with anxiety. He pulled out his phone and started scrolling. "Care to explain these?" My heart stopped as he showed me photo after photo. There I was, or someone who looked like me, in compromising positions with different men. Screenshots of explicit text conversations filled his screen, all allegedly from me to various guys. "James, that's not. I never." My voice shook as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. "These are fake. I've never cheated on you." "Fake?" He laughed bitterly. "Your own sister sent these to me." "So you're saying Sarah made all this up? Created fake photos and messages just to break us up? Why would she do that?" "I don't know why she'd do this, but James, please, look at my phone." I scrambled to grab it from the coffee table. "Check everything. There's nothing like this on there. I've never cheated on you." "Don't bother," he cut me off, stepping back when I tried to hand him my phone. "I trusted you, Amanda. I thought you were different. But you're just like all the others, a lying, cheating traitor." "James, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "You know me. You know I wouldn't do this." But his eyes were cold and distant. "We're done. Don't try to contact me again." The door slammed behind him with a finality that shattered my world. I tried calling him immediately, straight to voicemail. Text messages wouldn't go through. Email bounced back. He'd blocked me everywhere. I collapsed onto my couch, my whole body shaking with sobs. How could this be happening? How could he believe I would cheat on him? And Sarah, my own sister, had done this to me? The hours blurred together as I cried until I had no tears left. My phone kept lighting up with concerned messages from friends and coworkers. Apparently, James had already started spreading the word about my infidelity. After crying myself to sleep, I woke up the next morning with one purpose: confronting Sarah. My hand shook as I dialed her number, half expecting her to ignore the call. But she picked up on the second ring. "Well, if it isn't my cheating sister," she answered, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Why did you do it?" My voice cracked. "Why would you fake those photos and messages?" She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound made my blood run cold. "Oh, come on, Amanda. Did you really think I'd let you have your perfect little happily ever after? You, married to a successful, handsome guy like James? Please. What are you talking about? You don't deserve him." Her voice suddenly turned vicious. "You don't deserve any of it. The perfect job, the perfect fiancé. Who do you think you are? I felt like I'd been slapped. Sarah, we're sisters. Sisters? She sneered. Please. You're nothing but second best, Amanda. You always have been, and you always will be. Did you really think you'd get to marry someone like James before me? That's not how this works. In that moment, 25 years of sisterhood shattered. All those memories, the shared rooms, the whispered secrets, the forced smiles at family gatherings, they all took on a different meaning. Every eye roll, every backhanded compliment, every moment of tension suddenly made sense. You've been jealous of me this whole time, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a truck. Jealous? She laughed again. Don't flatter yourself. I'm better than you in every way. I just couldn't stand watching you play house with James when we all know you don't deserve him. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon, desperate for support. Surely they'd believe me. Surely they'd see what Sarah had done. I was wrong. Amanda, honey, Mom said, shaking her head. Why are you trying to blame your sister for your mistakes? But I didn't make any mistakes, I practically shouted. Sarah faked everything. She admitted it to me. Dad crossed his arms. Your sister would never do something like that. Stop trying to shift the blame. If you cheated on James, you need to own up to it. I left their house in a daze. Once again, Sarah was the golden child who could do no wrong, and I was the screw-up who couldn't be trusted. But life wasn't done kicking me while I was down. The next morning, I walked into work only to find my access card denied. Security escorted me to HR, where a sympathetic-looking woman handed me my termination papers. I'm so sorry, she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one could hear. James pushed for immediate termination. He said he couldn't work in the same building as, well. I didn't even finish reading the paperwork. I just signed it, packed up my desk, and left with my head held high, at least until I got to my car, where I broke down completely. 3 days later, my best friend Jenny called. Amanda, I don't know how to tell you this, but Sarah and James are dating. She's been posting pictures of them together all over Instagram. She's saying she's been helping him heal after your betrayal. I hung up without responding and threw my phone across the room. In the span of a week, I'd lost my fiance, my job, my family's trust, and now my sister was dating the man she'd helped me lose. Depression hit me like a ton of bricks. For a month, I barely left my apartment except to buy groceries. Thank God I'd been saving for the wedding, at least I could afford to wallow in my misery without worrying about rent. I spent my days in a fog, alternating between crying and staring blankly at Netflix shows I couldn't focus on. My phone stayed off most of the time. I couldn't bear to see more photos of Sarah and James together, couldn't stomach another well-meaning message from friends asking if I was okay. Then one night, around 3 a.m., I shot up in bed with sudden clarity. The fog lifted, and for the first time in weeks, I could think straight. I didn't want to die, I wanted revenge. Not the petty kind with drunk texts or social media drama. No, I wanted to expose Sarah for who she really was, to make everyone see the snake hiding behind that innocent smile. It was like someone had flipped a switch in my brain. The next morning, I showered for the first time in days, put on my best suit, and started job hunting. Within 2 weeks, I landed a position at Morrison Financial, a bigger firm than Preston and Associates, with better benefits and a corner office. I even started visiting my parents again. I'm doing better now, I'd tell them with a practiced smile. Sometimes things fall apart so better things can come together. They ate it up, relieved to see their older daughter moving on so maturely. I sat through family dinners, nodding politely when Sarah and James would show up hand in hand. He'd avoid looking at me directly, while Sarah would shoot me these little smirks when no one else was watching. James and I are thinking about getting engaged, she announced at one such dinner, watching me carefully for a reaction. I just smiled and asked to pass the potatoes. 2 years passed this way. I built my career, making a name for myself in the industry. I went on a few dates, though nothing serious. And I waited. Patience had always been my strong suit. Then came my opportunity. Sarah was having Sunday dinner at our parents' house, without James, who was on a business trip. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while helping Mom with dessert. I knew her passwords. She'd always been careless about security, leaving sticky notes with her login information scattered around her desk at our parents' house. It took less than a minute to get into her phone. And there it was, months of messages with someone named Mike. Hundreds of texts, dozens of photos that would make James's blood boil. "God, Jay is so boring," one message read. "All he talks about is work and investments. At least he's loaded. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby," another said. "Jay's credit card is buying us a nice hotel room." My hands shook as I forwarded everything to my email, the messages, the photos, the hotel receipts. I even found Mike's address in their chat history. They weren't even trying to be careful. Getting the video evidence was almost too easy. Mike's house was in a quiet suburban neighborhood, perfect for discreet surveillance. I spent a few evenings parked across the street in a rental car, my phone camera ready. Sarah wasn't exactly subtle about her afternoon visits. She'd pull up in the Mercedes James had bought her, practically skipping to Mike's front door. Their passionate embraces on the doorstep gave me all the footage I needed. "Baby, I missed you," she'd coo loud enough for my phone's microphone to pick up. "James is so boring compared to you." I collected 3 weeks' worth of videos. Sarah and Mike making out against his car. Sarah sneaking out of his house at odd hours. The two of them laughing over what looked like expensive champagne on his patio, probably paid for with James's credit card. Then came the engagement party. Sarah insisted on having it at our parents' house. "It's more intimate," she'd said, though really she just wanted to show off to the whole family. James had proposed with a ring twice the size of the one he'd given me. The house was packed with relatives, friends, and James's entire family. Sarah held court in the living room, showing off her ring to anyone who'd look. Mom and Dad beamed with pride, while James's parents kept commenting on what a perfect couple they made. "I'd like to make a toast," I announced, standing up during a lull in the conversation. All eyes turned to me. Sarah shot me that superior look I'd grown so used to. The same look she'd given me 2 years ago, when she'd stolen my fiancé. Poor thing, probably thought I was about to give some gracious speech about being happy for them. "I have something to share with everyone," I continued, connecting my phone to the TV. "A little engagement present, you might say." The first text messages appeared on the screen. Sarah's face went white. "What is this?" James stood up, squinting at the messages. "Oh, just some conversations between your fiancé and her boyfriend Mike," I said calmly. "There's quite a lot of them. They particularly enjoy discussing how boring you are, James. But hey, at least you're rich, right?" That's not," Sarah stammered. "And here's some video evidence, in case anyone has doubts." I played the clips one by one. Sarah and Mike kissing. Sarah leaving his house at midnight. Sarah laughing about James while sipping expensive wine. The room erupted into chaos. James was on his feet, roaring at Sarah. His parents were shouting about disgrace and scandal. Our relatives were whispering and pointing. "You crazy bastard," Sarah screamed at me. "How could you do this?" "Funny," I replied. "That's exactly what I wanted to ask you 2 years ago." Mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Dad just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I didn't stick around for the aftermath. I gathered my things, walked to my car, and drove home in perfect silence. Inside my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, watching the city lights twinkle. For the first time in 2 years, I felt completely at peace. My phone rang at 7 a.m. the next morning. Mom's name flashed on the screen. "How could you humiliate your sister like that?" she screamed, before I could even say hello. "James called off the engagement. She's devastated. You need to fix this right now." "Fix what exactly?" I asked calmly. "The fact that she cheated?" The fact that she got caught? Or maybe you want me to fix the fact that she's finally facing consequences for her actions? She's your sister. Dad's voice came on the line. They had me on speaker. Family protects family. You will fix this, or we'll. I cut him off. Or you'll what? Take her side again? Go ahead. I'm used to it. I hung up and blocked their numbers. I needed coffee before dealing with any more family drama. But I hadn't even finished my first cup when someone started pounding on my apartment door. Open up, you damned bastard. Sarah's voice echoed through the hallway. I took my time walking to the door, unlocked it, and stepped back as she burst in. You ruined everything, she screamed, mascara running down her face. You ruined my life. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? I took another sip of coffee. I'm going to make you pay for this. She grabbed a framed photo from my wall and threw it at me. I dodged it easily. Like you made me pay 2 years ago? I asked quietly. When you fabricated evidence of me cheating? When you destroyed my relationship? When you took James for yourself? She froze, realization dawning on her face. You planned this. All of it. The whole time. 2 years, I confirmed. 2 years of watching and waiting. 2 years of playing the forgiving sister. 2 years of knowing that sooner or later, you'd show your true colors. You're insane, she whispered. No, Sarah, I'm patient. And unlike you, I only needed real evidence to get my revenge. She ran from my apartment like she'd seen a ghost. The weeks that followed were a parade of guilt-tripping messages from my parents. Sarah had lost her job due to emotional distress. She wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. She'd moved back home and spent her days crying in her old bedroom. You've destroyed your sister, Mom texted. Are you happy now? I didn't respond. What was there to say? Dad tried a different approach. If you don't make this right, you're out of the will. Is that what you want? I finally replied to that one. Do whatever you want with your money. I've already got what I wanted, the truth. They didn't like that answer much. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought about me. While my personal life had been a soap opera, my career was soaring. Morrison Financial promoted me to senior director, complete with a corner office and a substantial raise. Sarah, meanwhile, hit rock bottom. After losing her marketing job, she moved back in with our parents. That's when the drinking started, wine with breakfast, vodka for lunch, whatever she could get her hands on. It was during one of her drunken episodes that the truth finally came out. Mom told me about it later, how Sarah had been sprawled on the couch, halfway through a bottle of wine, when she started rambling. I showed him those pictures she'd slurred. Made them all up, found some girl who looked like Amanda, got someone to help me fake the texts. She didn't deserve him anyway. I deserved him more. Mom and Dad sat there in stunned silence as their perfect younger daughter continued her drunken confession, spilling every detail about how she'd orchestrated my downfall. 2 years of lies came crashing down in one wine-soaked evening. Dad called me the next day. His voice was thick with emotion. Amanda, we need to talk. Can you come over? I found them both in the living room, looking like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Mom couldn't even look me in the eye. We were wrong, Dad said simply. About everything. We'd been wrong for a very long time. Mom burst into tears. How could we not have seen it? How could we have been so blind? We failed you, Dad continued. Not just about James, but your whole life. We always favored Sarah, always made excuses for her. We let her get away with destroying your happiness, because we couldn't believe she was capable of such cruelty. It was the apology I'd waited my whole life to hear. But instead of feeling triumphant, I just felt tired. Dad cleared his throat. I'd been thinking, maybe we should try family therapy. The three of us. To work through everything. So we did. Every Tuesday evening, we sat in Dr. Marshall's office, unpacking decades of favoritism, resentment, and misplaced trust. It wasn't easy, there were tears, shouting matches, weeks of awkward silence. But slowly, gradually, things began to change. As for Sarah, my parents finally did what they should have done years ago, they cut her off. They gave her enough money for a security deposit and first month's rent on an apartment, telling her she could come back when she got help and showed genuine remorse for her actions. Last I heard, she's working as a receptionist somewhere downtown and living in a studio apartment. She sends mom and dad messages sometimes, but they're staying firm on their boundaries. James reached out eventually. My parents had told him everything, Sarah's confession, the years of manipulation, all of it. He asked to meet for coffee. I should have believed you, he said, looking older and tired. I should have at least listened to your side. I know it's probably too late, but maybe we could try again? I studied his face, the face I'd once thought I'd wake up to every morning for the rest of my life. I felt nothing. No, I said gently. I forgive you, James. But I don't love you anymore. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. These days, my life is quieter. I have dinner with mom and dad every Sunday. We're not perfect, there are still moments of tension, old habits that die hard. But we're trying, and that's more than we ever did before. I don't regret exposing Sarah. Some might call it revenge, but I call it justice. She made her choices, and now she's living with the consequences. As for me, I'm exactly where I want to be. My career is thriving, I have my own place, and for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm second best to anyone.